Well, good morning, and what a good morning it is to celebrate 65 years of the Shepherd of the Hills outdoor drama. Man, that's awesome. Yes, so cool to be a part of this event today. Thanks for choosing to come to the Roundtable Talks. I can't wait to talk with these guys and hear the stories that they'll share. And, you know, it was funny this morning just watching you guys come in and interact. I kind of felt like I was at a family reunion a little bit. So it's so cool to see you guys come together and just kind of remember what brought you guys together in the first place. And that's this wonderful drama and this wonderful story. On to the good part of today. These wonderful guys have decided to join us today. They are historical figures in this show, so they've played some very key roles. Many of them have played several roles in the show, and many of you all know them. And, you know, it's interesting to think about what Harold Bell Wright would think of this today, and how many people have come together to keep this story, his story, the story of the Ozarks, keep it being told in this dynamic way and in the outdoor theater, and what a special thing it is. I think he'd be proud. His story was published well over 100 years ago, and so it's very cool to keep this alive, and you guys have played a very, very big part in that. So I want to introduce these guys. They're probably not strangers to many of you. First of all, we have Bud Lynn, and whoop! And Bud has played Dad Howitt, Matt Howard, and Jim Lane over the years, and also acted as the former PR manager. And I also learned that his voice is still played during the outdoor drama. Some say the voice of God, the narrator. And so it's still his voice that you hear. So I thought that was pretty neat. So thanks for being here, Bud.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Of course, yes. And then Keith Thurman. Thank you for being here, Keith. So Keith performed as young Matt, and he was the director of the play beginning in the early 80s and continued until 2021. So he was also, he's also the man who the theater is named after now, Thurman Old Mill Theater. So pretty cool. And then we have Mike Kaufelt, Sr. Mike, thanks for being here this morning.
You're welcome.
So I believe you played Preachin' Bill, Lem Wheeler, Uncle Ike, and has been here for about 50 years now.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mike. So Brian Caperton, glad that you're with us today. So Brian currently plays the role of the sheriff. How long have you been doing that now?
Sheriff, about 40 years.
Okay, wow. So we've been doing that for about only 40 years. But he's been around for about 50 years, and he actually owns and operates Bear Creek Trail Rides. And so some very important characters in the show, the horses, who do a great job. This guy's is in charge of them. So great job there, too. Thanks for being here. And then Haas Braden, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
So you've been a part of the show since 1997.
87.
87, typo, 87. So at the age of 20, you started in a variety of roles, including Wash Gibbs, and now you play Old Matt in the outdoor drama.
Yep,
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for being here. Okay, so now it's history and story time. So these are living legends, historical figures of the show, and I'm just so excited to hear from them. So first of all, there's probably a lot of these, but what moments or seasons stand out to you as turning points in the play's 50-year history? Sorry, 65-year history. I do know. I just was on.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's my honor, Katie. Thank you very much. I remember 1968, my first year that I was in the show. I was dating a young lady. She's out in the audience here, Linda, and she was. I was in college at Kansas State College of Pittsburgh at the time, Pittsburgh State now, and I asked her to marry me. After dating her for a while, I asked her to marry me, and she said, "You're going to have a job." I said, "Well, all right." So I auditioned for Shepherd of the Hills in April of that year, and I fortunately got the job as the Haint. So she didn't know if she was marrying a Haint. So I got the job as Howard the artist, the Haint. But anyway, yeah. So that was very special for me, and it's been a wonderful experience for me.
That's hard to follow. I came out here, I followed a young lady out here also in 1967 in September. I was in a band at that time, and we were playing music over in Rockaway Beach, and this girl kept coming in over there with, well, a good portion of the cast would come in to where we were playing on the nights that there wasn't a show. And she and I started seeing each other, and I started following her out here when we were off. And this dad-burned place put a spell on me. And within a very short period of time, I had given up the music, well, about 10 years. But I gave up the music and got locked in here and couldn't get away from it. I wanted that part of young Matt, but I only weighed about 160 pounds. And I spent about 2 years in a weight room trying to get big enough to play the part. The fellow that was directing then, one of my very dear friends, Hal Meadows, told me if I would put on 30 pounds, he'd let me play. Well, he never expected me to do that, and I fooled him. And I got to play that for several years, and then was fortunate enough in '81 to, they asked me if I would move into the director's chair. Harold moved on to the big theater over in Lampe. And he married a girl he followed out here. The girl I followed out here run off with Hank Williams Jr. Poor Hank. And anyway, I talk too much, so I won't say much more. I've spent my life here. Literally ate, slept, and breathed this place for 50 years. The directing part of it is the highlight in my memory, because you get to touch so many different aspects of the show and the cast. You know, people say they work here and they work there and it's a big family. Well, this wasn't the Shepherd of the Hills family. This was the family. We fought like brothers and sisters, but you let somebody else come in and say anything, see what happens. It was beautiful memories, and I look around, I can't see anything for the light. Oh, there you are. And I see a lot of folks I haven't seen in quite a long time, and that's real pleasure. I'm real glad to get to see you. Now, I've done mine for the, okay. Michael?
You want to share some special moments over the years as well?
No.
Pass it on, I guess. Y'all didn't warn me about him.
One of my early memories when I first started playing sheriff was, I didn't realize it, but I always had to look and see who was playing Jim Lane. Because if it was Bud Lynn, now Bud's one of the best actors we've ever had out here. But if it was Bud Lynn, that's for sure. If it was Bud, I always needed to be in place 2 or 3 minutes early. Because about every 6 or 7 weeks, Bud would go up in his lines as Jim Lane. And you'd hear that, And all you could do was shoot him. Love you, Bud.
You always knew Bud was playing Jim Lane when the shooting started clear back up in the rain shelter and down in the woods because they were still trying to get where they were supposed to be, and nobody could do anything about it. So generally the sheriff did something bad. We went on.
That's true. Very true.
Well, the one memory that sticks with me the most, that the really turning point of this production going on, was in 2017. For every year, we had gotten a comeback letter, usually in March, first part of April, that for us to have a certain time to come back for our get-together and get our rehearsal schedules. And in 2017, we did not get one until it was probably about the 1st of June when we were all hoping, wishing, and praying that this could keep on going. In the first part of June, we got a phone call, and it was from Jeff Johnson. And him and another fellow had stepped in and had completely saved this place from folding under. And we got together, and we was even putting stuff on Facebook like we were ball knobbers, and telling stories and showing different pictures and whatnot. And we were hoping, wishing, and praying. And then when that phone call did come through, it was just like a tremendous burden was lifted off our shoulders that we were going to be able to do this again and continue on with this legend and legacy. So 2017 is the year that it really got to me. And thank heavens for Jeff Johnson and Steve Faria.
Mike, you're going to have to say something here in a minute.
Yes, I remember 2017 as well. So grateful that this is still continuing today. Now, the next question is about some roles that you guys have played, and I know some of you have played multiple roles, so maybe just pick your favorite one, or you can talk about them all if you want. But how did you make that character your own?
Well, I remember I've played several roles. I remember playing Jim Lane, and Hal asked me to play the part. I didn't know the lines at the time, but fortunately Bill Malone showed up, so I didn't have to play it. But he said, you're going to have to learn the lines. So I was very young when I played that role. And I had to pattern myself after somebody else. And so Linda's father, Pete, big bulldozer operator, and he would dominate the room. Even though you knew he wasn't there, you knew he was there because you'd walk in the room, you know what I mean, and you knew that he was there. So he helped build Table Rock Dam, as a matter of fact, with his big bulldozer he had. I met him and I shook his hand, and I thought, this is the biggest hand I've ever put my hand into. I mean, I could fit my hand in there about 3 times, and he was a big fellow, so I thought, I better be good to her. So anyway, but then I played the role of the shepherd role, and that was a very great role for me. I enjoyed that so much. The minister from the city, Chicago, Illinois, and so I worked at that role. I started playing that role in 1974. Again, I worked with Hal overnight, working to play the shepherd role, and we worked all night long on those lines. And so he finally said, Bud, you're going to have to play the role. So anyway, I started playing the role when I was 26 years old, very young. And so I could do a part from the shepherd, and Hosh, you'll have to help me with this, okay? Okay. This is the prayer after he finds out that he has a secret too terrible to share. And this is what he says. O God, my Father, I do not ask thee for things that men deem great. I covet not wealth, nor honor, nor ease, only peace, only that I may live here free from those who do not understand, that I may in some measure make atonement, that I may gain pardon. Oh, drive me not from this haven into the world again. And then Warsh Gibbs comes on.
Hey, old man, who was that week before you heard us coming?
Young Pete was here a few minutes ago.
Nah, I wasn't Pete. Who else was here?
There was no man.
Ah, don't you be lying to me. I seen somebody in the road yonder. He running his, we reared up.
I assure you, Mr. Gibbs, I am quite alone. Okay, thanks, Hoss.
Young Matt was, of course, my favorite part to play, and I copied my young Matt after Hal, who had been young Matt before. I thought he and Don Connors played that part awfully well. And I had an older brother. He's passed now, but he's about 9 years older than me, and he was a big, healthy, good-looking kid. And I always kind of featured him as a real live young Matt type character. When I first came, like I said, I weighed about 160 pounds, and Harold was actually looking to make an Ollie Stewart out of me. And I got to looking around, and I seen not too many of the girls was looking at Ollie, but they was all looking at young Matt. So I spent 2 years busting my rear in a weight room to get big enough to do the young Matt part, and I'm real glad I did. It was a lot of fun, a lot of years. I played across from some fellas that was actually a lot better at what they were doing than I was. We used to just beat the heck out of one another, and that's the truth. I'm paying for it now, but boy, that was fun. Used to bring that crowd to their feet. We used to hit each other in the head. Not that I'm proud of that, but we used to. The fight used to be an open. It was a fist with an open hand, right at the last minute into the face, and once in a while you get a little deep. I've eaten eggs through a straw more than once with a separated jaw and busted eardrums and whatnot. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, because at the end of that fight, of course, in those days, the audiences were 2,500, 3,000 on a fairly regular basis. And they would literally come to their feet, hooting and cheering and yelling. The more people you get, the easier it is to get that out of them. Let me put it that way. We didn't do anything any better any more than's being done now or ever has been. We was just stupid enough that instead of fooling around, we actually hurt one another. They used to bag one of us up and haul to the hospital about once a month. And I shouldn't be telling how silly we was, but anyway, young Matt was mine. I loved playing Wash Gibbs, and I got to play several characters down through the years, but that would be my favorite. Michael, he's played everything but Sammy Lane.
You wish. In 1970, Hal Mathers and I was working over here in the shop, and the kids, the kids, I call them kids, that were in college at that time had to go back, and Hal said, "You want to be in the show?" Well, I needed another job, so yeah, why not? And so I got to ride a horse and carry a torch. Got to get slapped off the dance platform. And the next thing I knowed, why, I was doing Ed Johnson. And then I guess Hal left us then, and I got to play Joe Gardner. And then, No, I got to play Lem Wheeler. And then I can't even tell you now when I got to play that. But anyway, I don't know how I got to play these parts, but the directors would say, "You need to do this, you need to do that," and that's what I done.
Well, probably my favorite thing I do is call square dance.
Yeah.
And one of the least favorite things I did was play Lim Wheeler because everyone said, "You're a natural."
Let's see. 1987 is when I got the message from Keith Thurman who wanted to meet me out there with Bud Lynn. And we stepped out underneath the old elder tree that was down there on stage, and we ran through the party scene lines. The one thing Keith told me was, I love your character, you did your homework, but you to articulate too well, and you need to talk more hillbilly. So that's what I had to do, was learn hillbilly. And I think I accomplished it, you know.
Yeah.
But during the fight, Keith was talking about where we used to do the open hand face licks. And I got to say that the man that hit me the hardest is sitting right there. Matt Meadows, good friend of mine. That there has been a few accidents. I've had my nose broke once. I had the tooth knocked out. The tooth, it hit the inside of my mouth. And I knew exactly what had happened, but I was adrenaline and blood was flowing too well for me to stop. So I spit the tooth at him. It was at Joel Strand, and it caught him right there in the corner of the eye. And he did the rest of the fight with one eye, trying to line up for these punches. But that would be probably my favorite character that I've ever played. I played Uncle Ike, and I was always too big to play Jim Lane or any other characters. But they put me into Old Matt, which I prefer to be called Middle-Aged Matt. And but I'm 60 years old this year. I'm thinking about changing that to Old Matt.
So did they change it to acting fights after that? Not real fights? Or do they still do real fights?
It's a rough and tumble.
Okay. Well, it really seems like, as Keith was saying, this place really sucks you in. It becomes a part of you. And it seems like you guys have really, that's happened to all of you. What has being part of the Shepherd of the Hills meant to you personally? It's a big question.
Well, thanks, Katie. The big thing about Shepherd of the Hills, it is the tradition. It has been here. This has been the Shepherd of the Hills country for forever. And you look at the old maps and you'll see Shepherd of the Hills country. And as a matter of fact, there's going to be a state park that's coming in here that is going to be dedicated to the Shepherd of the Hills. And so we're very fortunate for that. And when you watch the show, it's not just a simple performance. It's a spectacular event. And that's what I tell people all the time. It's a great experience. I saw the show back in 1965 with my brother Bob and what we called Addie Kay. And Bob's out here in the audience with his wife, Kathy. And we saw the show and we thought that was so great a performance. We thought that they were actually Hollywood stars that were playing in the show. And Linda and I saw the show back in 1967. I took her on a date across, all the way across from Pittsburgh, Kansas. She didn't know I was going to take her that far, I don't think. It's the second date we had. We drove for about 3 hours, almost ran out of gas. I didn't aim to do that, but that's kind of what happened. But anyway, we went around the corner at Dewey Ball Mountain and we saw, with the sun going down, we saw Mutton Hollow and Compton Ridge and Inspiration Point in front of us, and we thought, wow, this is the most inspirational scene that we've ever experienced. It's a spiritual event, is what it is when you see that.
Thanks, bud. Ooh, that's a hard question. Without talking too much, shut up. I know what you're thinking. That's a running joke. I talk too much, but anyway, my family heritage goes all the way back to the mid 1800s and all four grandparents. So I grew up with the Shepherd of the Hills actually part of my life from the time I was little. Never knew much about what it really was until I got out here. Everything you did was Shepherd of the Hills. I mean, it was the Shepherd of the Hills Township over in Forsyth, and over here was Sammy Lane Boat Dock and Old Matt's Cabin, or Old Matt's Hotel, and of course Old Matt's Cabin and Little Pete's Restaurant, and there was a Shepherd of the Hills lumber yard and a Shepherd of the Hills fish hatchery. But I didn't know what the true Shepherd of the Hills was till I got here, and I literally let it take me over. I ate, slept, and breathed this place. I mean, I was fortunate enough for them to let me hang around out here even when I wasn't working. And so I was here all the time. My kids more or less grew up out here, and not like Mike's and some of the other folks, but it's I don't know how to explain it. It's not just a story. It is a way of life. And again, I say, it's hard to explain. You get so caught up in this. And I will say this, and Jay and the folks that's doing this now knows this. When you direct that show down there, you have to be with it 24 hours a day. You can't drop anything. You can't forget anything, or you'll be right in the middle of the show and you forgot that somebody couldn't be there, and all of a sudden it's their turn to speak and they're not there. You can't do that. You've got to be right with it the whole time. And between the number of folks in the show and the heat and the cold and the rain and the mud and everything that goes along, all the livestock and the guns and everything that goes along with it. And then you add the storyline where you have to honestly tell people and show them at the same time what that book's all about. You bring that book to life. And to do that, you've got to be everybody. I was always fortunate enough to have one of the best casts. And each year, a few folks stayed and a few turned over. But I don't remember ever in the 40 years I directed having a bad cast. I've had some outstanding characters in the show, all of them were, but you always get that few that it just comes natural to. They don't have to act. As a matter of fact, I used to preach, don't act, react. Don't run lines, live them. Don't speak your lines. Have a conversation. Be for real. Know what the other person's going to say so that you can get as involved as they are. And it worked out real well for everybody. I'm tickled to death they put up with me as long as they did. It's a great place to be. And if you ever get a chance or hunting work, call Jay.
Shepherd of the Hills is a great place to work, or it has been for me anyway. I really don't know what to tell you other than it's made me rich and famous.
Well, when I first came out here, it was just basically because I wanted a job, needed the money, but it didn't take me long for the Shepherd of the Hills to kind of soak in. I played well over 1,000 shows and never missed a single one. My first 15 or 20 years here, never missed but about 3 shows. But one of the most important things that happened to me out here was meeting my deceased wife and having two wonderful boys. And the older one, Clinton, he came out here and played Wash Gibbs and Young Matt, far better actor than I am. And the younger one played, I think it was Ed Johnson, wasn't it, Keith? I think he played Ed. But that's what really is, like Keith said, it soaks into the bones. It's been my whole life pretty well.
Well, it's been so long. What was the question?
How has how has being a part of the Shepherd of the Hills shaped you personally? What does it mean to you?
Okay, that's an easy one. I've come to see the show since I was a kid. I come out here with my parents. We would come out at least once a year. We'd go to Silver City once a year. And what amazed me most was the way they did things down here. The fire, the fight, the guns, the horses. It was just incredible to a youngster with great big eyes watching this take place. And what means the most to me is when I first got on out here with Keith was bringing that legacy and legend to life, to portray that character the best I could, and to be able to make people believe, to make them get into the moment for 2 hours. Forget about the TV, forget about the telephone, forget about the job, but watch what was going on down there on stage. And if I could make one person believe, and I know I have, that I know I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and that was bringing that legend to life.
You have.
And what a fine job you guys have done keeping that legend alive. And so our time is flying by. We've got just over 10 minutes, but I want to maybe end with this question. You know, this story still resonates with people today. Why do you think that is? And I'm going to kind of put two questions in one. Why do you think it resonates with people today? And what does it mean to you that you've helped keep that alive, like Haas was saying?
I think it resonates with people today because it is the story of the Ozarks. Harold Bell Wright wrote the story in 1902. He was a very young man when he wrote that story. It was the second book that he wrote, and he published that book in 1907. And I might say that it was like a Garth Brooks album, you see, because they had to switch. They had to go to another print shop to print the book because they couldn't keep up with the printing of it because it sold millions of copies, and it's the book supply company in Chicago first printed that book. It's the first edition, and then the second edition is still 1907. That's the A.L. Burt Company in New York, But he wrote the story, and he was a Christian minister, and he wanted to, it was a test case to see if he could reach more people through the ministry of print, and that's why he wrote the book, The Shepherd of the Hills. And so the book, The Shepherd of the Hills, is the reason why tourism has been, coming into the Ozarks, because it started coming in here in 1907, just after the book was published. People wanted to see the people and see the country that Harold Bell Wright wrote about.
Thanks, Bud. That's good. There's so many directions you can go with that. This story took place in 1907 or in the late 1800s, but it is as true today as it was then. I mean, you could just change the places and the people, but do the same story. If you look hard, you'll see this story going on in your own life on a regular basis. It's good versus evil, and good wins. I mean, this is American as apple pie and John Wayne and peanut butter. You can't help but like this show, and I think that's why people come back year after year after year. And it's funny, a lot of times at curtain calls when I used to be in the show, or even when I wasn't, these little kids, you'd hear them reciting the lines. I mean, these kids, there's a lot of these kids knew the lines better than the cast did after they'd been to see it a few times. And it's just something that sticks with people and makes people want to come back over and over and see it. The show stays kind of the same because you can't change the story. You can move it around a little bit, and you can add this and that, which needs to happen. But as far as the story goes, the story is the story. It's Harold Bell Wright's story, and we just relive it. And if you can achieve that, you will bring the cast back, or the audience back, without a second effort. I think in the 90s, and along in there when there was so much competition in the area. We lost a little of our crowd, but it wasn't because the show got worse. The show stayed just as good, and in a lot of ways even better. It's just that there was so many people that had so many choices, and they had seen The Shepherd of the Hills, so for a year or two, and they went to see something else. But they're coming back. I would give anything in the world to see 2,000 people tonight sitting in that theater again, and I firmly believe in my heart that we will.
When I went to school, you never heard nothing about the Ball Knobbers, Shepherd of the Hills, or anything like that around here. People just growed up however you could, and I am glad to have been a part of the Shepherd of the Hills.
What Keith said. No, it's the story is it takes people back to a simpler time in their lives or in history, and it's a basic story of good and evil, and that's what appeals to people, I think.
What would appeal to people these days for Shepherd of the Hills? It's that way of seeing that simpler time, of reliving what they went through, and possibly going home with a thought in their head, maybe a song in their heart, knowing that this place is still going. And that's one of the biggest parts for me, is keeping that legend alive, and working alongside these other folks has been one of the greatest times of my life.
And we may not have time for everyone to answer this, but what do you, I know it's an honor and probably a responsibility to keep this legacy alive. How do you feel that you've played such a big role in keeping that alive, and maybe how would you encourage others to get involved in that as well?
Oh, thank you, Katie. You know, it's a gratifying experience for me. It was one of the most, it was like my life. I felt like the sawdust down there ran in my blood, you know, and it was just a big, big part of my life. And I enjoyed being a part of the Shepherd of the Hills, always will. But Linda and I now travel. Linda writes Christian music, and we travel, and she lets me sing sometimes with her, but she sings mostly. But that I do the Shepherd of the Hills roles. I do the parts from the Shepherd of the Hills, and I enjoy that. People enjoy listening to that because it's the history of the area, the Shepherd of the Hills.
What was the question?
Yeah. How would you maybe encourage, like you all have gotten involved in carrying on this legacy, how would you encourage other people to help carry that on? And maybe it's just coming and supporting the show, but why is that important that we all continue the legacy?
I really don't know what to say about that. If you weren't raised the way I was raised, and the way the rest of us here were raised, it's hard to find somebody to get started in this business. I don't know what to tell you, Keith. Oh, yeah. You can have no, it's all right. Go ahead.
First of all, I apologize for running off every few minutes. I got an old man's stomach going on today, and I don't know what in the dickens is in the air this year, but my sinuses and allergies has been running amok. But I don't mean to be rude and get up and run off. And now I think I forgot the question.
Well, just real quick, why is it important that we, like you all have done, helped keep this alive? And maybe it's as simple as the rest of us coming to support the show and watch. Why is it important that we play a role in keeping this alive?
Notice she said real quick. Well, it's just Branson. I mean, this is the reason there's a Branson. If that book hadn't been published in 1907, Branson would have never happened. You can be sure of that. Ball knobbers or no ball knobbers or nothing else. If Harold Bell Wright hadn't published that novel, there wouldn't be a Branson. If you want to appreciate Branson, come out here and see the play. And if you need to come and see the show once a year, make it a family tradition and come and see it. Keep this tradition going. It's worth it. We've let a little of that get away from us. A lot of folks that's moved in here in the last 25, 30 years doesn't have a clue how this actually came about. They think Roy Clark came to town and Branson was born. Roy Clark came to town because Branson was born, because the people were coming here to see this place, to see these people in this country that Harold Bell Wright had written about. And tell your kids, tell your grandkids, have them tell everybody they can tell that they need to go see the Shepherd of the Hills. We need to get nice big crowds back out here again. And the more people that come and spend a little money, the more they can put into it, and the bigger and better it will get until, Lord of mercy, I don't know how it could get any better than it is now, but it will if we keep the tradition alive. And again, I'm sorry about the hacking and coughing.
How do we get people out here? How does it appeal to folks? It is the story of the Ozarks. There's a cast of over 60 actors and actresses, horses, wagons, a flock of sheep, a donkey. It's a mystery, a love story. It's a drama. It's a Western. It's a comedy. It's a little bit of everything rolled up into one. And if we can bring that story to life and let people leave with a song in their heart and a thought in their head that, wow, that's the way it was back then, we know we're doing our job.
Well, thank you guys so much for not only sharing all the insights that you shared with us today, but for being such an integral part of this story over the history of the Shepherd of the Hills. You guys have been great.
Thank you.
There's a request for one more story from Bud Lynn regarding a horse backstage.
You were playing Jim Lane and you were off stage waiting on your horse. Been a long day, you retired.
Oh, okay. Well, that's one of many times that things have happened out at Shepherd of the Hills. It's a real story. It comes to life, and you never know what's going to happen out on the stage. Whatever happens, we just go on with it. But I was sitting on my horse, and of course I'd been working, day and night, and I went to sleep on that horse, and the hat fell down beside it, and it twirled around there. Big old, great walking Tennessee Walker, big black horse. But anyway, I went off of it onto the pavement and broke my arm. But Keith, the people came around to try to fix me or set me up or whatever. And Keith says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." So I went on and played Jim Lane that night.
Oh, wow.
So, those things happen.
That was a good one. As they're making their way out, we'll give them one more round of applause.